The news spread through secured quantum channels faster than administrators could contain it. From the Centaurus Prime Academy to Concordat High Command Headquarters, encrypted data packets detailing the human's performance created ripples of concern across multiple security classifications. In a chamber designed to accommodate 17 different atmospheric requirements simultaneously, Admiral K. Vallan of the Concordat Strategic Assessment Division addressed the holographically assembled representatives. The implications are clear. The Admiral's tentacled form gesticulated with precision as data projections materialized around the assembly. Humanity's diplomatic corps significantly downplayed their species' capabilities during first contact protocols. The question before this council is whether this constitutes deliberate deception or cultural misunderstanding. Adraxi's representative's four arms moved in agitation. Intent is irrelevant. A species with Earth-human adaptability combined with their documented history of territorial aggression represents an inherent security concern. We should not overreact, countered the Solarian delegate, her crystalline features refracting light across the chamber. One exceptional individual doesn't define an entire species. The Academy exists to identify extraordinary candidates. Admiral K. Vallan's compound eyes shifted between delegates. Preliminary assessment suggests this human is not extraordinary by their species standards. If accurate, we have significantly misclassified Earth and its inhabitants. The implications hung in the chamber like a gravitational distortion. "What are your recommendations, Admiral?" asked the Cerulean representative. Two-pronged approach. First, continue escalating Academy trials to determine actual limitations. Second, dispatch a specialized assessment team to Sol system for direct observation beyond diplomatic channels. Unaware of the high-level attention he had attracted, Alexei stood with 200 fellow cadets on the edge of the massive outdoor training complex. The morning sky of Centaurus Prime had darkened unnaturally as weather modification systems created ominous storm formations overhead. "Welcome to the Combined Survival Exercise," announced Commander Thalia, her voice carrying across the assembled cadets. "This trial integrates multiple environmental stressors simultaneously. Your objective: traverse the 20-kilometer course, retrieve your designated marker, and return to extraction points. Conditions will simulate multiple Class 7 hazard zones with unpredictable transitions." Murmurs rippled through the cadets. Class 7 was unprecedented for first-cycle trainees. "Safety protocols remain active," Thalia continued. "Extraction beacons will function normally. Teams of 3 will be randomly assigned." The randomization algorithm flashed assignments across personal devices. Alexei found himself paired with Vexara and a Meridian cadet named Triskel. The thin, transparent-skinned male nodded nervously in acknowledgement. "This is excessive," Triskel observed, his circulatory fluids visibly pulsing with anxiety. "My species isn't adapted for sustained environmental stress. I'll slow you both down." "We complete this together," Alexei stated firmly. "Each of us has different strengths." Vexara caught his eye with a knowing look. "Triskel's sensory perception is unmatched. Your endurance and my energy conversion were well balanced." As teams dispersed toward different entry points, Commander Thalia approached their trio. "Cadet Volkov, a word." Stepping aside, Alexei faced the Cerulean officer, whose scales had darkened to midnight blue, a sign of serious concern in her species. "This exercise has been modified," she said quietly. "Your team's course contains elements not in the standard program." Alexei maintained his composure. "Is there a specific warning, Commander?" Her violet eyes studied him. "The system is programmed to push boundaries progressively until extraction is requested. Your failure to request extraction in previous trials has complicated calibration parameters." "I understand." "Do you?" Thalia's mandibles tightened. "There's a difference between capability and wisdom, Cadet. Sometimes the strongest choice is recognizing when to stop." Before he could respond, she continued, "I've reviewed your planet's historical archives. Your kind has an unusual relationship with adversity. Most species evolve to avoid it. Humans seem to seek it out." "Not all of us," Alexei replied carefully. "But enough." Thalia glanced toward Vexara, who waited at a respectful distance. "Be mindful that your choices affect others today." As Thalia departed, Vexara rejoined him. What was that about? A warning, Alexei replied. They've customized our course. The explanation was interrupted by the blaring alarm signaling commencement. Teams rushed toward their designated entry points as environmental barriers activated, separating the training zones. Their course began in a simulated methane swamp, a thick, viscous environment with minimal visibility and toxic atmospheric compounds. Triskel's transparent body proved invaluable, his specialized senses detecting stable pathways through the morass, while Vexara's crystalline structures glowed, providing necessary illumination. Alexei found himself naturally taking point, his body adapting to the noxious environment with practiced efficiency. Earth's varied biomes included countless hazardous environments from sulfuric hot springs to methane-producing bogs. Transition point ahead, Triskel warned, his voice distorted through their communication equipment. Atmospheric readings indicate, he faltered, that can't be right. They emerged from the swamp onto what appeared to be an Arctic landscape, but the readings were off-scale. Temperature indicators showed minus 120 degrees C with atmospheric pressure at twice standard levels. Ice crystals formed instantly on their protective gear. This is Class 9, Vexara realized with alarm, not Class 7 as announced. Alexei scanned the terrain, noting the distinctive crystalline formations. Nitrogen-methane environment, similar to Saturn's moon Titan in my solar system, extreme cold but manageable with proper technique. He adjusted his breathing apparatus. Conserve energy. Movement generates heat. Follow directly behind me. As they progressed through the brutal landscape, Alexei felt a familiar calm descend, the focused state that Earth's Special Forces training had instilled. The environment was hostile but navigable, one step at a time, controlled breathing, efficient movement. Hours into the exercise, they had traversed 3 distinct hazard zones when Triskel collapsed, his transparent body showing dangerous circulatory constriction. Extraction beacon, Vexara urged, reaching for the Meridian's emergency signal. Wait, Alexei said, kneeling beside their teammate. The current zone simulated high-radiation desert conditions, challenging for most species but relatively manageable for Solarians like Vexara. His core temperature is dropping too rapidly. Making a quick decision, Alexei removed his outer protective layer and wrapped it around the Meridian, then lifted the slider being onto his back. We continue, he stated simply. Vexara stared at him, without full protection in this zone. I've experienced worse radiation during nuclear incident training, Alexei replied. We're not abandoning him. They pressed forward, Triskel's weight barely registering to Alexei's Earth gravity-conditioned muscles. Vexara moved closer, her crystalline formations actively absorbing excess radiation around them, creating a partial shield. You continue to defy expectations, she observed, her silver eyes reflecting admiration and something deeper. It's not about expectations, Alexei replied. It's about... A deafening explosion interrupted him as the ground beneath them disintegrated. They plummeted into darkness, separated in the chaos. Alexei's training kicked in instantly. He tucked, rolled, and absorbed the impact across dispersed muscle groups as he hit a hard surface 10 meters below. Disoriented, he activated his emergency illumination. The scene that greeted him wasn't part of any approved simulation. The natural rock formation beneath them had been rigged with actual explosives, crude but effective. Vexara, he called out, quickly locating Triskel's unconscious form nearby. Vexara, report. Here came her strained voice from beyond a pile of rubble. Something's wrong. This isn't part of the exercise. Alexei moved swiftly to her position, shifting aside debris with strength that would have been impossible on higher gravity Earth. He found her pinned beneath a rock formation, her copper skin dulled with pain, crystalline structures flickering weakly. Sabotage, she whispered as he worked to free her. Someone tampered with our course. Alexei assessed the situation with cold clarity. The explosion had collapsed their path forward and backward. No extraction team would be expecting issues in this section. Their communication equipment was damaged in the fall. Can you move? He asked after freeing her legs. She attempted to stand but faltered. Lower extremity damage, minimal regenerative capabilities in this low-radiation environment. Without hesitation, Alexei activated his emergency beacon, then lifted both Vexara and the unconscious Triskel. "What are you doing?" Vexara asked, surprised. "Carrying you both out," he replied matter-of-factly. "There's a vertical shaft created by the explosion, approximately 30 meters to the surface." "That's a vertical climb with double your body weight," she protested, "even for a human." "For a human from a high-gravity world with specialized training, it's challenging but feasible," he corrected, securing them both with torn pieces of protective gear fashioned into a harness. "Hold on." What followed astonished even Vexara, who had come to expect the unexpected from Alexei. He ascended the nearly vertical rock face methodically, finding imperceptible handholds, testing each one before committing his weight plus his two passengers. His muscles strained visibly, yet his breathing remained controlled, his focus absolute. Halfway up, Vexara's voice broke his concentration. "Why did someone target us?" "Not us," Alexei grunted, securing another handhold. "Me. The explosion was precisely timed to my position." He pulled them up another meter. "Someone doesn't appreciate what my performance suggests about humanity." "Or they're afraid," Vexara suggested, her arms tightening around his neck as loose rocks cascaded past them. When they finally emerged from the shaft into blinding daylight, emergency response teams were already converging on their beacon signal. Commander Thalia's expression shifted from professional concern to shock as she witnessed Alexei standing, carrying both injured teammates. In the medical facility, as Vexara and Triskel received treatment, Alexei found himself under different scrutiny. Administrator Jorax himself conducted the debriefing, his compound eyes never leaving Alexei's face. "The explosive residue matches nothing in our training inventory," the administrator stated. "An investigation is underway. In the meantime, you'll be placed under protective observation." "Protective for whom?" Alexei asked directly. The Quarian's exoskeleton clicked, a sign of discomfort. "Recent revelations about Earth's true classification have created political complications. Some elements within the Concordat view humanity's emergence as potentially destabilizing." After the debriefing, Commander Thalia escorted Alexei through secured corridors. "You've become a focal point in a debate that extends far beyond this academy," she explained. "Your performance validated concerns that humans might be more militarily capable than previously assessed." "We're not a threat," Alexei insisted. "Perhaps not intentionally," Thalia countered, "but a species that evolved on what we now recognize as a Class A death world, with your psychological adaptations to conflict." She left the implication hanging. In his secured quarters, the isolation felt oppressive until a soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Vexara, her damaged leg supported by a regenerative field, her copper skin regaining its luminescence. Without words, she moved to him, pressing her forehead against his in a gesture of profound intimacy. The crystalline structures along her temples hummed with energy that transferred between them like an electrical current. "I was afraid," she admitted, her melodic voice unusually vulnerable. "Not of the situation, but of losing you before," she hesitated, "before I could understand what this connection between us means." Alexei's arms encircled her, his typically controlled demeanor giving way to genuine emotion. "I've faced death before. This was different. Having someone to protect, someone who matters, changes the equation." Their lips met with greater urgency than in the simulation chamber, no longer an experiment but a confirmation. Her skin emitted a radiant glow that bathed them both in golden light as the kiss deepened, transcending biological differences through a more universal language. When they finally separated, Vexara's eyes held a silvery determination. "The Concordat representatives arrive tomorrow. They're coming to evaluate you to determine if humans represent a threat or an asset." "And what do you think we are?" Alexei asked softly. Her crystalline features caught the light as she smiled. "I think you're exactly what this galaxy needs, even if it doesn't know it yet." Neither noticed the surveillance systems capturing their interaction, transmitting data to analysts attempting to understand human emotional responses. Nor could they know that halfway across the galaxy, a specialized Concordat assessment vessel had just entered Earth's solar system, its mission classified at the highest levels. The galaxy's perception of humanity balanced on a knife's edge, with Alex unwittingly at its center. The Concordat delegation arrived with the formality that only a millennia-old interstellar alliance could muster. 7 representatives from the dominant galactic powers assembled in the Academy's Grand Chamber, their diverse physiologies accommodated by specialized environmental fields. Academy leadership stood at attention as Admiral K. Valen entered last, his tentacled form moving with deliberate grace. "This evaluation is unprecedented," the Admiral began without preamble. "Never has a single cadet's performance prompted strategic reassessment at this level." Administrator Jorax's exoskeleton clicked nervously. "Cadet Volkov has demonstrated exceptional capabilities, but we maintain all training protocols were within established parameters." "Your own reports contradict that statement," countered Adraxi's representative. "The human completed Class 9 hazard simulations with minimal support technology. By definition, that exceeds parameters for first-cycle cadets." Commander Thalia stepped forward. "With respect, representatives, Cadet Volkov should be evaluated in person before conclusions are drawn." Admiral K. Valen's compound eyes shifted toward her. "Indeed, he will face the Crucible." A murmur rippled through the Academy officials. The Crucible was reserved for final-year cadets, a comprehensive simulation combining physical, tactical, and psychological challenges calibrated to the absolute limits of each species' capabilities. No first-cycle cadet had ever been subjected to it. "That's not protocol," Thalia objected firmly, her scales darkening. "The Crucible requires months of specialized preparation." "Protocol has already been compromised," the Admiral replied coolly. "The Concordat assessment team that visited Earth has submitted preliminary findings. They confirm what Cadet Volkov's performance suggests. Humanity's environmental challenges and historical development have produced capabilities that were deliberately downplayed during diplomatic integration." The Solarian representative's crystalline features caught the light as she spoke. "We should consider that this may have been a cultural misunderstanding rather than deception. Many species conceptualize normal differently." "Regardless," continued K. Valen, "we must understand the full extent of human capabilities. The Crucible will provide definitive data." In his quarters, Alexei received the news with characteristic composure, though his heart raced beneath his calm exterior. Vexara, who had refused to leave his side despite formal objections from her own delegation, gripped his hand tightly. "The Crucible isn't just physically demanding," she explained, silver eyes wide with concern. "It's designed to break you psychologically, to identify your breaking point and push you beyond it." "Every species has limits," Alexei acknowledged. "That's what they want to determine, humanity's true limits." Her copper skin glowed with anxiety. "The Academy believes you've been holding back. This will force you to reveal everything." Alexei was silent for a long moment. "Perhaps that's necessary." "What do you mean?" "Deception creates fear. Transparency builds trust." He gently traced the crystalline patterns along her cheek. "If humanity is to find its place in this alliance, honesty about our capabilities may be the only path forward." Vexara leaned into his touch, her features softening. "The galactic community fears what it doesn't understand. Your adaptability represents an unknown variable in carefully calculated power dynamics." "Then let's make it known," he replied simply. The night before the Crucible, Commander Thalia visited Alexei's quarters. The Cerulean officer's normally composed demeanor showed subtle signs of strain, her scales fluctuating between deep blue and violet hues. "I've reviewed the Crucible parameters they've designed for you," she began without preamble. "They're beyond reasonable. Multiple simultaneous Class 10 environmental hazards, combat scenarios against unprecedented opponent numbers, psychological stressors designed for species with far more developed neurological defenses." "You think I'll fail?" Alexei observed. Thalia's violet eyes met his directly. "I think they've designed it to ensure you fail. The political implications of a first-contact species possessing Deathworld capabilities without declaring them has created concerns. About human intentions. About human potential," she corrected. "A species that evolved on what we now classify as a Class A Deathworld, with your documented history of warfare adaptation and resource competition." Her mandibles tightened. "Some factions believe humanity should be contained rather than integrated." Alexei absorbed this with characteristic calm. "What do you believe, Commander?" I believe in evidence and observation, she replied carefully. I've watched you demonstrate not just physical resilience but ethical judgment when you carried both teammates from that sabotaged exercise that revealed character, not just capability. She presented him with a data crystal, the complete parameters for tomorrow's crucible. Normally, this would be withheld to test adaptation to unknown variables. Alexei studied the crystal but didn't take it. With respect, Commander, I'll face it as designed. Surprise flickered across Thalia's alien features. That's not the response I expected. Earth's history taught us that capabilities matter less than how they're employed, Alexei explained. Tomorrow isn't just about what I can physically endure. It's about demonstrating that humanity's adaptations don't make us a threat. Thalia retracted the crystal, her scales shifting to a lighter blue, respect in her species' color communication. You continue to surprise me, Cadet Volkov. That's our specialty, he replied with the ghost of a smile. Dawn arrived with ceremonial gravity. The Academy's central simulation chamber had been reconfigured to accommodate the unprecedented crucible parameters. Observer galleries filled with instructors, senior cadets, and the entire Concordat delegation. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation and underlying tension. Vexara found Alexei in the preparation chamber, her crystalline features pulsing with barely contained emotion. Without words, she embraced him fiercely. Remember what you taught me in the methane swamp, she whispered against his ear. Conserve energy, controlled breathing, one step at a time. When she pulled back, she pressed something into his hand, a small crystalline formation similar to those that adorned her features. A piece of Solaria, she explained. It absorbs and converts energy. It's not much, but... It's everything, Alexei interrupted gently, closing his fingers around the crystal. Their foreheads touched in the intimate gesture they had come to share, an electric current seeming to pass between them. The preparation chamber doors opened. Commander Thalia stood waiting, her formal uniform bearing the emblems of 17 campaign citations. It's time, she announced simply. As Alexei walked toward the simulation chamber, the Academy fell silent. He wore only the standard cadet uniform, no specialized environmental gear, no tactical enhancements. The simplicity of his appearance contrasted sharply with the tensed anticipation of the observers. Admiral K. Valen's voice echoed through the chamber. Cadet Alexei Volkov of Earth, you face the crucible not as evaluation but as revelation. Your performance will inform Concordat assessment of humanity's role in our shared future. The pressure of representing an entire species settled on Alexei's shoulders, a weight greater than any gravitational simulation could produce. I am ready, he stated clearly, standing at the center of the massive chamber. The crucible began without fanfare. The environment shifted instantly to a volcanic hellscape far more intense than previous simulations. Gravitation forces pressed down at 3 times Earth's standard, challenging even for his Earth-evolved physiology. The atmosphere filled with toxic compounds requiring careful breathing control. Terrain shifted unpredictably beneath his feet. Alexei moved with measured efficiency, conserving energy while navigating the hazardous landscape. Observers noted his technique, not just enduring but adapting, using environmental features to his advantage rather than fighting them. As the simulation progressed through increasingly impossible scenarios, murmurs rippled through the observation gallery. The human wasn't merely surviving the unprecedented challenges. He was systematically conquering them with a calm efficiency that bordered on casualness. In the combat phase, when confronted with opponents specifically designed to exploit human physiological weaknesses, Alexei demonstrated fighting techniques evolved through Earth's bloody history. Not just strength and speed, but strategic thinking that turned disadvantages into opportunities. This is impossible, muttered the Draxes representative as Alexei neutralized 7 simultaneous combat units. His techniques incorporate weaknesses from 17 different species. Not impossible, Commander Thalia corrected quietly. Necessary. Earth's history of interspecies warfare forced humans to constantly adapt against opponents with identical physical capabilities. They evolved to identify and exploit weaknesses because they couldn't rely on natural biological advantages against their own kind. The psychological phase began without warning. Immersive scenarios designed to trigger primal fears, create disorientation, and fracture decision-making capabilities. Alexei's heart rate elevated for the first time, but his neural patterns remained remarkably stable. In the Observation Control Center, Dr. Alindra monitored the biotelemetry with growing astonishment. His stress response is unlike anything in our database. Instead of suppressing fear, he's channeling it, using the neurochemical surge to enhance performance rather than hinder it. 5 hours into the crucible, twice the duration any first-cycle cadet had ever endured, Admiral K. Vallon signaled for escalation to final phase parameters. The chamber transformed into a comprehensive survival challenge, combining all previous elements with the addition of absolute isolation and resource scarcity. Enough, Commander Thalia finally intervened, her scaled hand over the emergency override. He's proven beyond any reasonable assessment parameter. Further escalation serves no scientific purpose. Admiral K. Vallon's compound eyes remained fixed on the monitoring displays. The purpose is not scientific but strategic, Commander. We must determine if there is any breaking point. With respect, Admiral, Thalia countered, the absence of a breaking point would itself be valuable strategic information. As the debate continued, something unexpected occurred in the simulation chamber. Alexei, facing an impossible combination of hazards, stopped advancing. Instead, he sat down cross-legged in the center of the maelstrom, closed his eyes, and began controlled breathing exercises. The monitoring systems registered confusion. His vital signs showed neither distress nor surrender. Rather, he appeared to be deliberately conserving energy, entering a meditative state despite the chaos surrounding him. "What is he doing?" demanded the Draxes representative. The answer came from an unexpected source. Vexara had entered the control center, her crystalline features glinting with determination. "He's demonstrating the true strength of his species," she explained. "Not just the ability to endure, but the wisdom to recognize futility. He knows this simulation has become a test without purpose, designed to continue escalating until failure. So he's choosing to simply exist within it." The elegant simplicity of the approach stunned the assembled representatives. The human wasn't fighting the impossible conditions or surrendering to them. He was accepting them, adapting to them in the most fundamental way. After 30 minutes of this unexpected demonstration, Admiral K. Vallon finally signaled termination. The hellish environment dissolved around Alexei, returning to the sterile chamber. He opened his eyes, rose steadily to his feet, and stood at attention, exhausted but unbroken. The silence that followed was profound. Administrator Jorax broke it first. "The Academy assessment is clear. Cadet Volkov has demonstrated capabilities beyond any established classification parameters." "Not beyond," Alexei corrected respectfully. "Different. Humanity evolved not just physical resilience but psychological adaptation to constant change. We view challenge not as extraordinary but as expected." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "What you perceive as exceptional performance is simply the product of a world that never allowed for complacency." Admiral K. Vallon approached him directly, tentacles rippling with complex emotions impossible for human perception to fully interpret. "You understand the concerns your capabilities raise," the Admiral stated rather than asked. "I do," Alexei acknowledged. "A species with our adaptations might be viewed as inherently dangerous in a galactic community that values stability. Yet you chose not to conceal those capabilities today when you could have strategically failed." "Deception creates more danger than honesty," Alexei replied. "Humanity doesn't seek dominance. We've learned the hard way that strength without restraint leads to self-destruction. What we seek is belonging." The graduation ceremony 3 weeks later bore little resemblance to standard Academy protocol. The assembled cadets, representing 37 worlds across the Concordat, watched as Alexei Volkov became the first-cycle cadet in Academy history to receive advanced placement directly into specialized command training. More significantly, Earth's classification had been officially revised. No longer categorized as a moderate Class C world, it now carried the designation Class A variant, Evolutionary Crucible World, a new classification created specifically to acknowledge humanity's unique developmental path. As Commander Thalia presented Alexei with his advancement insignia, she spoke words that would be transmitted across the galaxy. The measure of a species is not in their natural capabilities, but in how they choose to employ them. Cadet Volkov has demonstrated that adaptation need not lead to domination. It can instead forge understanding across even the most profound differences. The ceremony concluded with another unprecedented announcement. In recognition of the previously unacknowledged challenges humans had overcome, Earth would receive accelerated integration protocols, opening opportunities for human participation in Concordat security and exploration initiatives previously decades away. Later that evening, as celebration echoed throughout the Academy, Alexei found a moment of quiet on an observation deck overlooking Centaurus Prime's twin moons. The beauty of an alien sky still struck him with wonder, despite all he had experienced. Vexara joined him, her copper skin luminescent in the moonlight, crystalline features capturing and transforming the light into subtle patterns across her face. Without words, she took his hand, their fingers intertwining in now familiar comfort. "You've changed everything," she said softly, "not just for yourself but for your entire species." "And yours," he replied. The Solarian Assembly announced increased diplomatic exchange with Earth. She smiled, the expression having become more natural through their time together. "Political convenience. They simply want access to your adaptability knowledge." Her smile turned mischievous. "Though I suspect they'll be surprised by how much our worlds have in common, both forged through environmental extremes, both misunderstood." Alexei turned to her, suddenly serious. "What happens now? Your assignment takes you to the Concordat Diplomatic Corps, mine to specialized security training." "Distance is relative in a galaxy with quantum communication," she replied, then hesitated. "Unless you'd prefer a cleaner separation. Cross-species relationships remain uncommon, particularly between worlds so different." He answered by pulling her close, their foreheads touching in the intimate gesture they had made their own. The energy transfer between them had become something both biological and emotional, a connection that defied conventional xenobiology. "Different origins, same destination," he murmured against her lips. As they kissed beneath alien moons, neither could know they represented something profound, not just a personal connection but a symbolic one. In the coming conflict that had spurred the Academy's formation, the alliance between Deathworld adaptability and energy transformation would prove crucial to the galaxy's survival. Commander Thalia, watching discreetly from a distance, activated her secure communication channel to Concordat High Command. "Recommendation confirmed," she stated simply. "Humanity's integration should be prioritized. They aren't just survivors, they're innovators of survival itself." She paused, watching the human and Solarian whose improbable connection represented hope for a diversified future. "And more importantly, they understand something fundamental that many older species have forgotten." "What is that, Commander?" came the response. "That true strength lies not in dominating adverse conditions," she replied, "but in finding connection despite them." As the twin moons climbed higher, casting long shadows across the Academy grounds, Alexei and Vexara remained entwined, representatives of worlds that should never have been compatible yet had found harmony regardless. A metaphor, perhaps, for what awaited humanity among the stars. The galaxy had intended to test a human's limits. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's greatest adaptation wasn't physical resilience at all. It was the capacity to transform adversity into opportunity, isolation into connection, and difference into strength. For a species forged in Earth's evolutionary crucible, the challenges of galactic integration would be nothing more than the next step in humanity's endless adaptation. And this time, they wouldn't face it alone.